So we just spent the day here at Lucid Motors' new factory at Casa Grande, Arizona. It is here in the background. This is phase one. This is pretty exciting for Lucid because they've been at this for a while. They built this factory a couple of months ago. We were supposed to have this tour in April. Here we are now in September, but we had quite a day. We got some news. We got to drive the car, which is probably the biggest thing I've been waiting for. So on this episode of Tip of Da Vinci, we're going to talk about Lucid Motors and their progress here in 2021. The Lucid Air right there behind us, and where they are, and more. So stay tuned. The Lucid Motors story has been an interesting one. We've talked about them in the past. I think they get a fair bit of love and hate in the EV community, and I've never fully understood why. I've always said we need to have a lot more EVs. When Pepsi came along, it wasn't like Coke thought that there goes half their market share. It was the opposite. The total addressable market grew. The number of people who drink soft drinks grew. This is the same thing. If Tesla's making cars and Rivian's making trucks and Lucid's making cars, the market of electric vehicles grows. So this is a company I have been cheering for from the very beginning, and I continue to do so. So here is their factory in Casa Grande, Arizona. The first thing I'll tell you, this is phase one. One of the things you got to remember is it's really difficult building cars. To build a new automotive company and a plant is nearly impossible. There's so much capital expenditure that goes into building one of these things. So the first clever thing that Lucid has done is they've kind of staggered their spend, if you will, with this factory. So this is phase one. It's about 1 million square feet in floor space. Phase two takes that up to 3 or 4 million square feet. So substantially bigger plant. At that point, they would be making them almost 100,000 cars a year, about 90,000 a year. And then their eventual goal is almost 400,000 cars a year. But to get there, you got to be clever. So what they've decided, and I didn't really actually know this, and I was talking to some of my friends in the industry, one of the really central things to a plant is the paint shop. So the paint shop is usually one of the biggest bottlenecks. And the person that told me that is actually right here. Kyle, do you want to say something real quick? You were just telling me about the paint shop and their strategy about it.
Yes.
Could you expand on that?
Yes. A year and a half ago, I was speaking with Peter Hochholdinger about the paint shop. And this is sort of the genesis of the factory. This is how it started. And they built the whole facility around it. It's the hardest part, the most complicated part, the most expensive machinery, and the most permanent machinery that sticks around. So my understanding was you start with the paint shop and then everything else around it can be expanded. It's sort of like the keystone portion of the factory.
So one of the things they mentioned, which I thought was pretty clever, is they didn't build a small paint shop thinking we'll expand it later. They built a massive paint shop, the one they want. And because they're not building 100,000 or 400,000 cars yet, they're using the lower floor for general assembly. But as soon as they are building 100,000 cars or 400,000 cars, well, General Assembly would be moved into its own little part of the warehouse.
That's what they claim.
And the paint shop would be fully a paint shop.
Yep.
So, again, it seems pretty clever. I think you got to be scrappy if you're building a new car company. It's nearly impossible. A lot of the cars you drive are made by legacy makers who've been doing this for a long time. There aren't very many of these. So I just feel like there's a scrappiness to it. They've kind of figured it out.
They spent the money in the right places.
Yeah.
That's my impression, at least.
I agree.
I'm pretty impressed. I mean, I think one of the most important things when you tour a factory is like, oh my God, no cars are blowing up. Like, it's not exciting, right? You're going around, things are working orderly, and like they have a really good process. And to me, that means things are working properly. I was impressed with the overall factory. I think there's a lot of room for expansion. Of course, they have a lot of room around for it. And yeah, really excited to see where they go in the future, for sure.
So a couple things they mentioned. This is the first new greenfield factory in North America. That means, like Tesla, for example, bought a previously used NUMMI plant in Fremont. This is brand new built. And when you walk around in there, you can tell. We weren't really allowed to film a lot of what was going on, but everything's robotic. It's really highly automated, clean, modern, and more expensive, I'm sure, but actually buying an old factory and retooling it is a little bit expensive as well. So the factory is really cool. They're building the first cars that will be going to customers shortly. So I think as we were as we were walking around the factory, we saw cars in final assembly getting put together. These are not the first, but the first of many of the cars coming off the line. And these are the cars that are going to customers. So it has been a long road for Lucid. They first unveiled this car about 5 years ago. They went through their own production hells and all the various stages that any car company has to go through. But at the end of the day, I think we're close. Peter said that they are expecting deliveries to customers in October, so like a month from now. And I think all that's really good. I had a chance to drive the car as well. So one of the things I always look at with the cars is the accelerator pedal and how well it's mapped to your foot. Cars like the Ford Mach-E, I think they were just very rough, and like it wasn't like linear travel. It felt like there's just a little bit of like kinks to work out. This feels really good. You could kind of just modulate your foot a millimeter or two. You can see it swings back and forth between charging and regen. And when it switches between the two, it's also really smooth. The two takeaways from this entire event for me are about their serious hardcore engineering chops. They've built a car that is crazy efficient. 520 miles with a 112 kilowatt battery pack, computes like almost 4.7 miles per kilowatt hour. That is tops, and that's really impressive considering how big this car is. Speaking of how big the car is, on the outside, it's like a Mercedes E-Class, like midsize, right? Luxury car. But on the inside, it feels like an S-Class. It's massive. I gotta tell you, I'm pretty blown away by this thing. There's a general high quality fit and finish. Everything kind of feels premium and nice, and the legroom is massive. Look at the greenhouse on top here, huge sunroof. A lot of kind of typical stuff we're used to with EVs, and all that is still here. I think the real big takeaway for me is just how much legroom I have. My legroom when I was inside is huge. The person that was driving with us from Lucid is 6'2", had his seat back, way far back, and I felt like I was driving in like a limousine. It was massive. And they are able to do that because of their engineering and design around their motors. Their motor weighs about 74 kilograms and can produce 670 horsepower. That means their two motors deliver on the 1111 horsepower that the Dream Edition Performance is rated to produce. And all of that is possible because they stick everything out as far as they can. The motor and the battery assembly is low slung and out of the way. The front trunk is massive, the frunk, and the rear legroom is huge. We're looking at it from the outside, it feels like a pretty good sized car, but then, here comes one now. But then when you get inside of it, it's substantially bigger feeling. But the front trunk is built with a soft plastic that allows them to stick it into the cavity and then expand on it. Because I guess what they were saying is there's actually more room inside than there is loading room from the top. So they used a soft plastic when they molded it. That way they could stick it through the opening and then expand on it for the maximum amount of space. They've kind of thought about this. And this is where I'm really excited about startups as opposed to legacy makers. I think when you have a clean sheet of paper, you don't start with any old ways or old ideas, you start fresh. And there's quite a few areas where this car, for me, kind of shines in that way. The driving feel and the driving performance was unbelievable. It is breakneck fast. It felt like the fastest of cars I've ever been in. I haven't been in a Tesla Plaid, but I'm sure it's kind of similar to that. It is so fast. The pedal mapping, which is something I always gripe about. I had an issue with the Ford Mach-E, for example, having really poor pedal mapping the first 10%. This car was like my Tesla Model 3, which was just near perfection. You could really dial in the power just by modulating your left foot or your right foot, and get exactly how much power you want out of it. The regenerative braking is also similarly predictable. It comes and goes very linearly, and bravo to the team for the work they've done. Kyle, who was just on camera, he mentioned he drove this car 2 months ago in Monterey, and he said that the throttle mapping wasn't quite perfect. The mapping of the pedals he felt needed some work, and since then to now, in 2 months, the team has taken the feedback and evolved on it. A lot of this stuff is software, and they're making great progress. So if you're excited about electric vehicles, this is one of those cars that has got me excited. Tesla's proven that it can be done once. When Rivian and Lucid do it, now it becomes a pattern. And if you like electrification, that's the whole point. So bravo, Lucid, and thank you for inviting us out here. I'll have to email somebody there and see if I can get like a longer day with it to drive it a little more and put it through its paces. But this thing is a monster. It is an absolute pleasure to drive. And it's not like a track car. I'd say it's more of a luxury performance car. It's big, it's roomy, and it's dialed in for comfort, but it is a more than capable performance machine. Thank you so much for watching, guys. That's my report here at Lucid. If you were excited about Lucid before, I think everything I've seen here today should just make you more excited. And if you were skeptical about Lucid, which I kind of understand that too, I got to tell you, they're pretty close to delivering cars to customers. So well done to the team here. I think there's a lot of excitement, a lot of long nights, and a huge congratulations is probably in order. So thank you so much for all of you for joining. And subscribe and hit that like button and stay tuned. We'll cover more stuff as we can. I'm Ricky with Da Vinci, and just remember, the future is going to be awesome.